Welcome to this week's edition of the Muslim Street. We'll be discussing the transition of Black leadership. With us, produced out of Accra, Ghana, our show, produced by the Lance Scurv Show. And you can find him all over social media, including YouTube at the Scurv Podcast. I want to thank Lance for doing a yeoman's effort each and every week. We're presenting the Muslim Street. Also, we have with us our mobily founding member of the National Black Media Coalition and National Association of Black Journalists, and also Dr. Piper White, who is the author of Blacklisted. And Dr. White, later on in the program, I should hope that you will continue to talk about the efforts of the suppressive state in not only blacklisting you, but also suppressing independent revolutionary voices, not only here, but around the world. Some of the methodologies that these people will go to just reeks with desperation. Okay. You can find us at the Muslim Street at www.themuslimstreet.com on YouTube, Facebook. You can also find us across all social media platforms. So we're going to kind of jump right into this. Just with a short post that I made, literally art 10 years ago, July 5th, 2016. All right. In 2007, the Darfur 23 returned from Africa. We immediately called for the transition of Black leadership. We're now calling for the replacement of current Black leaders with new faces. We're calling for the replacement of methods, implementations, modalities, and the engagement of radically different ideals never seen before, and a major forklift in short-term and long-term goals and objectives, a clear roadmap, if you will, of how we are going to get there. And that will be to secure Black people worldwide for the next 12 generations. Black liberation alone is our major focus, period. Then I go on to say, please do not involve us in the every 4-year false dichotomy of the American democratic power politics. That vote for me and I'll set you straight pimp game that they run in Washington is beneath Black people. In the name of Sister Callie House, who's the birth mother of the reparations movement in this country, and in the name of Julius Nyerere, who wanted to build Africa by using the resources of its diaspora, we call for Black power once and for all. Art Mobley.
Whoa, that's a pretty serious. Hold on here. Am I on? Yeah, okay. That's a pretty serious intro. Appreciate that, brother. And not only do we have to look at how our leadership is shaped in this country, we have to look to the leadership in Africa. One of the things that happened just contemporarily in our cultural development was after the civil rights movement and even after the Garvey movement into the Black Power movement, Black people in the U.S. became under attack, and we were severely challenged militarily at that time. We had what, in essence, became a decapitation of our leadership. Whether you're talking about Medgar Evers or you're talking about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, on down the line, they tried to wipe out every leadership element we had in this country. Consequently, our leadership in the late 70s came about just about as the culmination of the African liberation movement was developing. And I'm talking about the guns shooting wars that were in Angola, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Zimbabwe. Our leadership, that became essentially the front line of the Black liberation struggle. We have a problem sometimes with our thinking. We limit our thinking to geographical pockets when we really have to look at our leadership as a global monolith. So with that, I believe our leadership shifted to Africa, and it hasn't come back yet. But we have a responsibility here to develop the best possible supplemental support leadership elements that we can to make sure that the Pan-African movement and African people around the world know that African Americans and Africans in this part of the diaspora support that. That's my comment. But
Yeah. So,
Viper,
Yeah, this is a very interesting.
Really?
Yeah, before we go to Brother Viper, I like Brother Viper. I want to kind of set up, kind of the basis for this discussion. The Black people, when being quote unquote emancipated in this country, were faced with two directions. One direction chose for us by our oppressor who enslaved us for 310 years, and that was that. And we didn't ask for this, that we will be American citizens. We never asked for that. The other, we had independent thinkers, even among us at that time, calling for the sovereignty of Black people, meaning returning us to our original state that when we were brought here over that 310-year period. I want to, Dr. White, I want you to jump in with these two tracks, one seeking the assimilation of Americanism, the other seeking independence by any means necessary. These two tracks created two different movements. One, which Steve Coakley termed the Boule, led by people like Du Bois and A. Philip Randolph later, Dr. King, essentially handing the baton off to Reverend Jesse Jackson. Then there was those who were calling for sovereignty, who bring into mind people like Dr. Blyden, people, the Pan-African movement that emerged in the Caribbean. It did not emerge in Africa. Its initial, I call for the audience to go and do the research on Henry Sylvester Williams. Also, people like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Minister Louis Farrakhan, Kwame Ture, another track of leadership that emerged, the Black Liberation Army in the late 1960s, and indeed the Black Panther Party to some extent, who were calling for total revolution and return to that sovereignty. Something happened, Dr. White, and I want you to kind of start from here. In 1972 in Gary, Indiana, we see politically these two movements begin to merge on the forefront. And that was in Gary, Indiana, the Independent Black Political Convention, where over 10,000 Black delegates attended over a 3-day period, and they called for nation time. It was clearly that they were calling for an independent Black political structure. It was not a third party, but an independent Black political structure. It was clear that they were calling for Pan-Africanism and the total liberation of Black people, and not and moving away from the assimilation politics. Now, here's what I want you to address, Dr. White, is that at this moment, and this is a critical junction in our history that has led us into 2026, basically baseless and stuck with the Black Congressional Caucus who have sold us all out. And that is over the next 12 years, there was a co-option campaign led by the Reverend Jesse Jackson to move that independent Black political infrastructure and those 10,000 delegates into the Democratic Party. By 1984, he's running for president. What's your response?
Well, first of all, the history of African American people after 5 decades of being in what we call the United States have developed this, what I call schizophrenic personality that is aligned and with political directives. And that really means is that we had some brothers and sisters who wanted to go and work within the system, and others who wanted to work outside the system. But within that, they always had this question that Du Bois brought forth and at the turn of the century, and that is the duality. Can I be a Black and an American at the same time? Must I separate one for the other? So we have this schizophrenic personality within our community. Now, when you would just oppose that to Jesse Jackson and what is taking place now, the biggest issue that we have is that unlike the 1970s and even the 1980s, we had a core of brothers and sisters who were rooted in concepts of Black nationalism, in concepts of independent political thought, in concepts of what it meant to be liberated and free. You don't have that now. You have now a perspective within the Congressional Black Caucus and other like groups, the AME Church, the various fraternities and sororities, of a idea that in order to be free, in order to be liberated, you must align to one of the political parties. So that element that I spoke about is completely missing. And to really look at this, this past week, I'm going to jump to South Africa real quick. This week, we saw that Julius Malema, right, in which I call the last Pan-Africanist on the continent, Major. He was the head of what you call the National Assembly of South Africa, a small party, ran for president, but he always criticized and he critiqued the whites in reference who started apartheid and their role and their continuance in the political structure and the economic stratum of South Africa. Now, remember a few months ago when President Ramaswamy came to the United States and they had a meeting with President Trump. I don't know if you remember this meeting, but President Trump consistently stated that, listen, what are you doing about the Black people who are practicing genocide against my people, the South Africans? If you don't do something about it, I will. Do you remember that conversation? If you don't,
we remember Donald Trump lying about a white genocide. Keep going.
Yeah, you're right. So the point is what has happened is that Ramaswamy, the president, he, even though he didn't like it, he acquiesced because Mr. Trump called Julius Malema's name in the meeting. Do something about him. So now he is in jail for trumped up weapons charges. The point that I'm making again is that until we have a number of models of Black independent thinking and Black leadership that has real root and strength and bite in their words, then we're going to continue to have groups like the Black Congressional Caucus and several others who mean the African American community nothing and who is aligned to the hegemony of white America. So that's where we are right now, brother.
Yeah, good point, Dr. White. And I just want to add to that context is that the white South Africans make up 7% of the population in former apartheid South Africa, and they own 81% of the land and the resources, Art Mobley.
Well, they're insignificant in terms of, this discussion. And certainly, Cyril Ramaphosa, the current president of South Africa, is also very active in the African Union. And he's active at a level that, again, doesn't take into consideration and take into account what I had said earlier about the decapitation of Black leadership. Not only was the leadership of Africa in this country, the African American community decapitated, but so was the African leadership on the continent. There's always an effort to decapitate our leadership. And so we're left with the Jesse Jacksons and the Julius Malemas and the Cyril Ramaphosa's because we don't have the Chris Hanis and we don't have the Fred Hamptons and we don't have the people who are articulating what we really feel deep under the veneer of what is happening in the diaspora, but in Pan-African movements around the world. Julius Malema was a very young part of the African National Congress movement. He was part of Winnie Mandela's soccer team guards, basically. Cyril Ramaphosa, on the other hand, was an active member in ANC and was the chairman of their labor movement. He organized the mine workers in South Africa into a quasi-fighting element of the Umkhonto weSizwe, the Spear of the Nation, that was directed by Nelson Mandela, ultimately. We have to go back to a military stance. The military stance is being taken by the president, Traoré of Burkina Faso, and Assimi Goïta of Mali, and the president of Niger, is the correct posture. And because of that, the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, is now getting ready to supplant the African Union. The African Union is losing major membership to the AES. So I think that's an important development, one that we have to kind of follow and look forward to as the movement shifts dramatically towards that military alliance, especially in the wake of what's going on in Iran and with the attacks against Iran by the United States and also Israel.
But don't you think, Art, that we have to continue as well as to create models and have the young people study the models? What I mean by that is that the three greatest revolutionaries that I believe of my time is Mao Zedong. All right, we have Mao Zedong, we have Fidel Castro, and we have Jomo Kenyatta, all right, of Kenya. And all of these men, you know, their countries were colonized, their countries were poor, their countries were completely controlled by outsiders, and they did not have, people did not think they had the strength and the power to do what they did. But they were able to create a bulwark of people to support them that ultimately changed China from being one of the weakest countries in the world, whereby everybody used them for their opium trade and so forth, to become the dominant power they are now. To transform Cuba, that was really an apartheid state as well, under Batista and before, to becoming a state that has some of the best healthcare systems in the West, and a state that is sovereign and self-sufficient. To Jomo Kenyatta's Kenya, until the past president that I don't like, but he showed that you can fight back no matter what the British did. You can come back and fight and win. We don't illustrate those stories. We don't teach that. So within our minds, within the African community, within the African American community, we have this perplexed perspective that says that we can't do it. If we do it, we're going to get hurt. If we do it, we're going to lose something. So therefore, we had created a fear consciousness because we are not teaching these models.
Well, we are teaching. We have taught about the Mau Mau. We've taught about the Cuban Revolution. We've talked about the revolution in China. I'm talking about the Pan-African movement and how people like Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X and, as I mentioned before, Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers, Huey Newton, and Bobby Seals, the impact that they had on us is much more graphic, closer to us, and something that I think we do understand and we do essentially ingest into our culture and into our teachings, and those things are passed along to our youth. But what we really need to do is lead by example. We have to become examples if we want our young leaders of tomorrow to have a pattern to follow and to have a substantive movement to enter into and engage and take over and control. That movement now has to be coupled with what's going on in Africa. The most expeditious way to get to where we need to be is through force of arms. I'm not talking about force of arms in this country. I'm talking about in Africa. Africa needs to be truly liberated. Then we have a base of operation. We have a place that we can refer, call our own, go to convene, and to really strategize in the movement of where African people need to go internationally. We're not going to get that in the communities in America. We're not going to be able to do that inside America. We are a captive community here. We are still a colonized people in this country, and will continue to be a colonized people in this country as long as people are sitting over us with all the guns and munitions and nuclear bombs and all of the things that threaten us in this culture.
So, go ahead, Dr.
Isn't that, Arthur, somewhat unfair? I mean, we're asking, it's disingenuous, right? We're asking,
disingenuous?
And we're asking, I'm telling you, we're asking and we're telling the Africans, pick up arms and to fight back.
Yes. Yeah. They're already picking up arms. They have arms up anyway.
But at the same time, we're not picking up arms. All right?
We can't pick up arms. That's nonsense. That's disingenuous.
I mean, we're telling another group to fight and to die.
That's the front line.
On the front line. But we had Robert Williams. There was no groundswell of support for Robert Williams. Negroes.
Yes, there was. Of course.
No, there wasn't a groundswell.
There was much love for Robert Williams. Robert Williams inspired the Panthers.
That there wasn't much love. I'm talking about support. If there was support, he would not have had to leave the country to go to Cuba and later on to China.
Yes, he would have. Again, that's the decapitation I'm talking about. They moved those people. They threatened them with jail. You have to go back and look at Robert Williams and understand who he was and what he did. Negroes with guns inspired the Panthers to pick up arms.
I'm not saying that
that's the support we gave Robert Williams.
But what the support that I'm talking about, just like there were members within the United States gave armaments to the Cuban Revolution, the first Cuban Revolution of the 1890s and turn of the century. We have to have, if we're talking about true liberation in the manner that you're speaking of, we're going to also have that. Because if not, then all we're going to be doing is talking.
Great. Right. That's wonderful if we do that in addition to supporting what is going on in Africa. We can do whatever we want to do in addition to. We can play around. We can play American politics. We can do any number of things, but we have to support. The African liberation movements first and foremost.
Yeah, let me jump in for a second and kind of smooth this over. I think Dr. White is what Art is saying is that the new militancy or the Black radical tradition in terms of the armed struggle has to be waged on the African continent. That's our mothership in respect to even the best among us that are left of the Black Liberation Army, the Black Liberation Movement of the late 1960s and early 70s conclude and accept that the United States government defeated us. All right, this is clear. So who did they defeat? If we look at the Black Liberation Army, which in New York City that emerged out of the Black Panther Party, the Robin Wahed, served 18 years, falsely imprisoned. Assata Shakur, exiled in Cuba after being falsely imprisoned. Jalil Muta King, Sundiata Acoli, some more of these political prisoners paid a tremendous price. And so what Art is saying is we've tried that. as a modality. Now we have to, in terms of support, we have to move on to defining support in a different mechanism from here to Africa.
Brother, I appreciate you, trying to, essentially capsulize and summarize my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But I was saying that we're not accepting a defeat. We weren't defeated. We just need to understand the context in which we work. Our leadership in this country was decapitated and removed for the most part. And that's the effort. That's standard operating procedures for imperialists. That's how they operate. That's what they just tried to do in Iran. Go in, decapitate everybody, get rid of everybody. They could even be a leader. In Iran, it didn't work because the people moved. So yes, we were attacked, but we were not defeated.
Yeah, those
we may have lost the battle, but we're gonna win this war.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick. So what I meant by when I said that, I just want to clarify that it wasn't me who said that. It was Amali Yeshitilla of Uhuru who said that. It wasn't me who said that. It was Darab bin Wahad of the Black Liberation Army who came away after the analysis of the early 1970s and said that the movement was defeated. Now,
but I think our argument is very strong and straightforward. I do think, however, in order so that we don't have our leaders destroyed and killed, that we have to find a way whereby our community can support our leaders. I mean, what you have in Iran is a support. What you had in some of the other countries that I mentioned is support. We, on the other hand, we leave our leaders out there by themselves. Then when they get killed or when they get exiled or placed in jail, we come back 5 years later and say, oh, wow, they were really great. Man, that's terrible what they did. We don't support our leaders that's in the struggle, that's taking the hits right now. And that's the problem.
But brother, let me just say the fallacy and the problem with that argument is that we are in America. We are in a captive community. It's like being in a prison yard. We're in a prison yard in this country. We are not free. We are outnumbered. We are outgunned. We're not even supposed to have weapons. We're not supposed to be talking about anything revolutionary. That's why every movement in this country, with the exception of the Black Panthers, going back to the Nat Turner rebellions and those, never picked up arms. We don't talk about picking up arms here. We don't have the luxury of being able to arm ourselves and fight against anybody in this country, nor should we want to. What we need to do is look towards those areas around the world, internationally, who can pick up arms. Where can we fight? Where can we confront imperialism, racism? Where can we confront those head on? And that is Africa. And that's why it's not unfair to ask them. They are doing what is responsibly their part in the international Black struggle to free Black people. That's what we're talking about. And we will be free in their wake. But we need to understand what that wake means and who's making that current in the boat.
Yeah, let me pause for station identification. You listen to The Muslim Street. You can find us at www.themuslimstreet.com. We're produced out of Accra, Ghana by the Lance Scurv Show. You can find Lance at lanscurv.com. In the last half hour, I want to kind of shift back to where this conversation started, and that is the transition of Black leadership. I think what is important from a historical perspective, that we give our audience a sense of a construct of how we got here, 2026, in this decapitation of Black leadership and Black politics. And then I'll ask Dr. White to respond to this. In 1876 was a very pivotal year, and I took a few notes here. I'm going to quote here. This was the presidential campaign of Rutherford B. Hayes against name's Tilden, right? And there's this compromise to take place. But there's a couple other things that were going on at the time, Dr. White. The rise of the Industrial Revolution, which affected labor. And then there's also the rise of the KKK in the South. They're upset by the fact that since emancipation, during this period of Reconstruction, that Blacks in the South began to gain political power. Even governorships in Louisiana, there's state senators. There's senators that go to Washington, and a plethora of Black congressmen. This all ends with as the 1876 presidential campaign between Tilden and Hayes is thrown into a virtual tie. They go to Washington, and of course they vote in favor or make a compromise that Hayes would get the White House. All right. The South says we don't want the White House, but what we do want are these federal troops that's protecting the free Black people, so they can get their political power out of the South. So that's the compromise. And what happens, Dr. White, and I'll let you start here as we move toward Black political power forward from there. That by 1900, there's no Black senators, no Black congressmen, and no Black governors because of this compromise that took place in 1876, the end of Reconstruction.
Well, you said it all in many respects. I mean, obviously, you have the element of Reconstruction, Black Reconstruction, counter Reconstruction, and all of that was designed to give whites ultimately power again. It was the only time in history up to that point whereby a conquered state, and that was the Confederacy, a conquered state, whereby the victors gave members of the conquered state their power. The same people who took the Confederacy in the war, and that was accountable for the lives of hundreds of thousands of people to be killed. They were giving their money back, they were giving their land back, they were giving their power back, which ultimately shows you that by Plessy versus Ferguson, that African Americans had no rights in this country. All right. Then what happens? We have a number of people who try to come up and try to find a way. We have Du Bois. All right. He comes along in 1895 with the Philadelphia Negro, his book. Then we have Booker T. Washington a little bit earlier. And they both are trying to find a way how to maneuver into this strange society that says that Black people are not wanted, Black people are not needed as political players, and Black people will always be in servitude. So that's where the dynamics are. And that's what the African Americans have been plagued with and trying to do, right up through the President Wilson administration, when he put out the movie Birth of a Nation. Then right up into the Roosevelt administration, when he created the Black Cabinet. A bunch of people like Mary McLeod Bethune and Jim Nabrett and several others to work in his cabinet to advise him. It's been like that a long time. The question is, and I think Art and I was talking about it, is how to get out of this, how to get out of this strange dilemma that we're in, whereby we can have real power, all right, if we want it in the United States, and real influence.
Yeah, so
being independent, and that has been the problem. That has been lacking.
So Art, and to answer Dr. White's question, I don't want us to forget that we have an open enemy called the white power structure, that white power hierarchy, who will continue at every quarter to oppress and attempt to defeat Black people. And what I mean by that, we can go to, and I want to do it in this context because they're always changing the game. They're always changing the rules, always coming up with some bullshit in order to, I'll give you this, but the knife, as Malcolm talked about it, is stuck all the way in our back. Two things that in the context of you answering Dr. White's question, in 1862, President Lincoln, who was, just praised by Black people, in May of 1862, this is before the Emancipation Proclamation. We coming up on the anniversary of May 20th, 1862. He, along with Congress, passes the Homestead Act on the heels of the Pacific Railroad Act and the Morrill Act, the same year, that facilitated the rapid transfer of wealth and millions of acres of land in this country to white people. Right now, Black people, a few years later, didn't even get 40 acres and a mule. And essentially what happened with the Homestead Act of 1862, the whites literally lined up. And at the sound of the gun, each one of them were able to claim, as they moved westward, 120 acres for themselves. Meaning if I had 5 brothers and 5 cousins, right, that's over 162,000 acres for themselves. And they began to play us, vote for me and I'll set you free kind of BS, while they took what Malcolm called land is the basis of independence.
Well, we understand how we've been oppressed in this country. We've been studying that all of our lives. I mean, we start very early, probably about the 3rd grade, learning American history. And so we learn that we have been continuously oppressed in this country. And that's been done to us very skillfully by mostly those who smile in our face and call themselves liberals and slave emancipators, and people who are trying to help these poor former slaves. But we're more than that. We go back. We go back eons. We are the original people. We are the first humans. We are the first people of color on this earth. So there's unquestionable history and longevity and power that Black people have. But in this context, in this little spot where we're in, if we put it on a yardstick, in terms of our cultural history, the history of Black people, if we had a yardstick right now, the length of time that we have spent in America, in slavery, in captivity, under this kind of oppression would be about 3 little marks on there, hash marks, maybe 3 or 4 millimeters on a yardstick. So let's not get caught up in where we are now. Let's look at where we've been, and let's look at where we have the potential to go. Where we can go is going to depend on land. Yeah, they ran the whole thing with providing land that they so-called stole from native people here and gave it away to white people who were out of Europe. That was called the American dream. A lot of people get confused with that. That notion,
specifically the bill that was passed was called the Morrill Act, 11 million acres given to these white people that you're talking about to take the land of the indigenous people, the Sioux Indians.
The African Indians, yeah.
On and on.
Blackfoot,
And they're still doing it. I want to juxtapose this to what's also taking place in a neighboring country, in Argentina, right? Did you know that a week or so ago, that the Argentina Parliament has enacted over like 300 or 400 acres of land that would begin for the resettlement of Israelis. We're talking about developing a new Israel in the Americas because of what's taking place. Very, very interesting. And our tax money has been already sent there to establish that. These are done very, very quietly. And just one more thing, I want to juxtapose my own story just quickly. You're right, Brother Art, we got to go forward. This is a new trick. This is what happened to me just past week, Brother Art, and to the. Have you ever heard of a person being voted out of a political party?
Of course.
Well, I didn't hear it until
all
it happened.
the time.
Well, let me tell you, this is what happened to me. All right. We have the political party, right? The national party. Then each party has counties, all right, in which they treat the county parties almost like a club, and so you have to join it. So I had a meeting, and they were supposed to vote on me, but because of my position on Israel, my position on the Black struggle, my position as a Muslim, as being an independent thinking Black man, it was very clear that I was not wanted, so they voted not to have me in it. It's very interesting because the Democrats did the same thing, all right, and now the Republicans, which goes to Malik's point that both parties are political corrupt, and they really have no standing, no place for African Americans and people of African descent who are free thinkers and who want real liberation. That's just a footnote.
Well, of course, they don't have a place for you or me or any Black person except those that will completely submerge themselves and capitulate their positions to do exactly what fits into white supremacy. If you want to be a Black white supremacist, you can be in politics in either party. Take your pick, But if you are not in that category, free think if you want to, they'll free think you right on out of there, or you might get shot at on the way out, So Be careful when you try and join these MAGA clubs and try to count yourself in to this white movement. Nobody is looking at you as a permanent member or even an honorary member for that matter. You are the objective to defeat. You are the scum at the bottom of the bathtub. So nobody wants you. Black people don't have no friends. Dr. Clark said it very eloquently. We don't have any friends in this culture. I don't care what they say. They are not your friend. They don't want to be your friend. They don't want to accept you into any part of their club. But we need to understand we do have our own club. We do have our own continent. It is the richest continent on the planet. And it is also the largest continent on the planet. It has a beautiful future. And we are missing the boat because we're not paying attention to that substance that's right in our face, right before us. We're trying to be accepted by white racists, and whether they're in Washington or they're in South Africa, we have to really get away from this notion that acceptability is our objective and not the things of substance that we need to be involved in. So, Muslim Street.
Yeah, that's right.
We on the Muslim street.
That's it. Straight up.
Malik.
Yeah. So I was attempting, as we speak, and I have these types of discourse to keep in mind that we have a listening audience, especially, and I'm talking about our listening audience, but literally in America. Primarily because of the rise of social media over the last 20 years that don't know what this is. Now inside here, that's a library.
Familiar.
It's a book, and it has a library card, and on these books that you get at the library, they're gonna have due dates. You have to get the book back, or you have to call and say, "Can I have this book another 2 weeks or whatever?" Right? So. As we talk to people, it's important that we set up the historical context for them, so they think through, how we got into 2026 with 90% of the Congressional Black Caucus. We didn't talk about the larger caucus, the larger Congress of whites and others, but the Congressional Black Caucus, 90% of them. Upwards really to 95% are owned by corporate entities, and definitely the Zionist lobby. They have to understand that as they run to the polls, Art and Dr. White, in November of this year, with a president who is just holding on. His approval ratings, if you step outside of MAGA, are in the teens. Even with the MAGA, I think he's sipping off only half of that. So they're going to lose, and they're going to lose big. And what I'm afraid of, Dr. White, is that Black people will come away after the midterms in November with the defeat of the Republican Party in the House and the defeat of the Republican Party in the Senate, and say that and throw parties that Trump is not lame duck. We're on our way, and they're feeling good, and they're going to be throwing a lot of parties and drinking red Kool-Aid.
Until we have an alternative, if we're going to go to the political structure in that manner, until we have an alternative, a real alternative to the Republicans and the Democrats, it's going to be that way. Because we're going to have a number of people who's going to stay home. They're not going to vote because they're going to say, why? There's nothing there. But they're still being controlled by a political mechanism that controls their lives. If it's economics, taxes, etc., food, housing, it's still there. So therefore, we have to develop an alternative of leaders and of freedom fighters that represent our interests. And we have to work hard to do that. We have to put our money in place to do it. And we have to be serious about doing it. Now, it's very interesting about this. The United States don't want this done. Even though they call themselves a democracy or a republic, it's the only country really that only has two major parties. If you go to India, several parties. You go to Brazil, several parties. You go to England or France, several parties, where people can choose. And we have to develop like that in some ways. And I argue that this way can be done in a duality. One whereby we have in that party, we work within and try to get representation that represent our interests. And on the other side, we still keep the Pan-Africanist Black Power movement in line as well. We're going to have a duality. There are two wings to a bird. All right?
We've had limited success, brother, in trying to play that game in this country. We've been essentially set back, and I'm talking about the whole African American Democratic Negro politics movement has been set back to the days of Fannie Lou Hamer and what she was doing with the Mississippi caucus and trying to become a part of the process on the floor of the Democratic Convention. Same thing with the Black Panther Party. It was a political party. It started out as a party that was registering Black people to vote in the South and hoped to be a party that would actually field a number of candidates, and Bobby Seals eventually ran for mayor of Oakland and won, and was for a while very involved in a continuous political movement as the Black Panther Party. So we know that they've changed the rules for party participation. Now there can only be two parties. Only the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are recognized in all 50 states as being rightfully on the ballot. If you are in any other party, independent, green, Black Panther Party, whatever your party concept, you are not going to be allowed on every state ballot unless you go and lobby in those states, state by state, to get on those ballots. Only the Democrats and the Republicans. That in and of itself creates a dictatorship in this country that is led by two parties. So we got a two-party dictatorship that is there to service no one and is especially designed to keep Black people as far away from that as we can. And the 2025 plan that Donald Trump drug in on his coattails was designed specifically and pointedly to set Black people back even further. So we can't fight this battle. We can't fight this battle in this country not with that in mind. We can't get inside this machine and try to commandeer it. And I mean, it's a futile exercise. we have to go back to, again, where we started, unfortunately, because they've unwound the clock and they've set everybody back. We got to think like Fannie Lou. We got to think like Bobby Seals. We got to go back to that if we're going to get any new ground in this country. That's where we're going to have to represent our arguments at that level. So otherwise, if we're smart, we also understand that Africa presents us an opportunity to present our arguments from another level and a more of a position of power. So that's what we need to have a show on that. You know. Well, can I do a commercial for the Muslim Street? You've got to subscribe, people. Smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, and join the Muslim Street and help us to move the algorithms up so that everybody can hear this and Scurv can stop punching me in my face.
Yeah. And to go along with art, you have to. This is the only show out there whereby we are aligned together, but we have different views and we talk it out. You see, so therefore we have a perspective, and that perspective is independent interest towards our community, and this is something, and this is important. So please support us, support Brother Malik, Brother Art, myself, Lance, so we can continue to do this. All right.
Yeah, hit the like button, like and share across social media. And I think we will continue to grow this platform. One of the things, Dr. White, as we look toward the midterms, and again, I cautioned about the response coming from the masses of Black people in this country when Donald Trump and his MAGA movement is defeated at the polls, and this false sense of elation that would take place. All right, I really would like for you to speak into that.
So first of all, the MAGA movement that was under Mr. Trump is dead already. Those people have left the barn. They're going someplace else because he did not follow his First Amendment agenda. Secondly, you're absolutely right. African Americans as a group and the underclass white community and Latinos and Muslims have a short memory. That is, they will see that this win, and the Democrats are going to win. They're going to see this as a great win in the defeat of Donald Trump, but not looking at the fact that the system that created a Trump, a Biden, a Harris is still there, and the policies will not change until we're able to change their mentality that it is a system, not an individual. It is a system that is promoting this pro-Israeli, this pro-American hegemony, this pro-war, this white supremacist perspective. Until we get the majority of the people to understand that, nothing is going to change. And that victory and that dance is only going to be for a short time. When somebody else, like who's the president, maybe a J.D. Vance, he may end up becoming the president later on in the presidential race, or somebody from the Democrats. We don't know who that may be because they're in disarray. But no matter who that may be, it's going to be short-lived, because we're going to see the same problems. Don't get caught up in the midterm.
Yeah, well, once again, I have to just note that the Sahel Alliance was able to pick up Senegal and Kenya, which I was really shocked to find Ruto and his government even thinking in that direction. And there's certainly a caveat that I think is behind that. Also, Libya is joining the Sahel Alliance. And, they are very fractured after being decapitated of their leadership and essentially dissected by the West and Europe. And that whole terrorist infiltration in Africa has come in through Libya and is now causing problems. Boko Haram, ISIS, all these fake organizations that were started by the American State Department, by Israeli intelligence to mask as being the marauding terrorists, and then inserting themselves in Africa militarily as being the saviors of Africans, saying, we're here to help you fight terrorism. Well, this is a game that they've been playing, and that game is quickly coming to an end. But as we watch the expansion of the Sahel Alliance at the expense of the African Union, I think we need to find the mechanisms in this country to support those movements so we more quickly get to a point of international liberation of Black people. We need to be very focused now more than ever and stop playing around the edges. I'm sorry, but
yeah. In the last 5 minutes, just want to hone in. This is Muslim Street. You can find us at www.muslimstreet.com and across YouTube. Please like and share. Allah says in the Quran in Surah Al-Hajj, "O you who believe, you have permission to fight, and war is made upon." Because they are oppressed. We have literally been given permission to fight, and we will continue to fight against oppression. Allah's Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says in the Sahih, authentic hadith, beware of the supplication or the dua of the oppressed, for there is no barrier between it and Allah. Literally, our supplication to Allah to bring down white supremacy, white power over the last 500 years, for them to bring down this government, which sits at the citadel of it, to his knees. There is no barrier between that call for that supplication in our 5 prayers and otherwise in between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I stand on that. I'll continue to call for that. I continue to make that dua until I see this place buried into the third world country that it should have been before it oppressed the Indians and stole their land and brought our people over here in the millions on the bottom of those boats to work for 310 years for free. Anybody else want to add on to that before that? I did leave 3 minutes.
I just like to punctuate and add that while we don't have to focus on challenging white supremacy as much as we need to focus on lifting up and accelerating Black unity. We need to be focused on building our own, and the rest of it will take care of itself. It's really that time of day for us, brother.
I agree with you, but I would also say it's time for African American people and free-thinking people in this country to align with organizations that want to align with us. That is, we need to get involved with BRICS. We need to get involved with international groups that see us as brothers in this struggle for freedom. Don't isolate yourself, support them, listen to them, go to their meetings, support them financially as physically, because this is the only way that we're going to be able to develop real freedom in this country. We have to have alliances that are strong, that is aggressive, that is needed.
I want to thank everybody for listening to the Muslim Street. Please join us next week. Like and share this podcast. Join in the discussion. We're going to take some Q&A next week from the live audience. You'll be able to engage Dr. White. You've been able to engage Art Mobley on any of their political positions that they take. So Lance will make that happen, and it should be a pretty lively show next week. Again, we'll be handling hot topics that are current and relate to the liberation of our people here in America and throughout the world. Lance, why don't you bring in some of that cool music as we escape into our Sunday? Bye.